On Saturday, July 15, 2023, Hartford officers were called to an apartment located on Maple Avenue regarding a young female who had been shot. They were dispatched to the location and arrived just before 3:40 p.m. to find the high school girl suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. During their drive to that address, they came across a car accident that occurred at the intersection of Maple Street and Benton Street. In the car was a passenger also suffering from being shot in the arm and neck. Moments after this, authorities were notified that 2 more men, who had also been shot several times, were dropped off on Wethersfield Avenue, which isn't far away from this apartment. It didn't take authorities long to learn that these were all connected, and it all took place inside that apartment on Maple Avenue. So what the hell happened there? July 15th started off as any other Saturday would in the city of Hartford, with roughly 120,000 people residing there. One of those residents was Alondra Vega Martinez, a 17-year-old student who was attending Bulkley High School. Alondra was well known for being an amazing teenager in her school. She was someone that staff could tell wholeheartedly wanted a future for herself after high school, and she was driven to get it. Being it was July though, it was their summer break, so she wasn't attending school until September, which would be her senior year, something she was thrilled about. In the meantime, she just hung out with her friends and family, enjoying the last high school summer break that she had left. On the afternoon in question, she was just hanging out at home located in the 500 block of Maple Avenue. In the second-story apartment at home with Alondra is 35-year-old Christian Rivera, who also lives there. They were just chilling around the house for the afternoon when they heard a knock on the door. The following events were allegedly all caught on a security camera that they had set up in their living room. The details come from a warrant that was issued after it took place, and one of the unidentified suspects vanished. Alondra was in the back end of the apartment, where there was another 15-year-old boy as well. Christian was doing his own thing when he heard the knock on the door, so he goes over to open it. At the same time, he hears the person on the other side of the door identifying themselves as a police officer. Christian opens the door to find 33-year-old Carlos Frank Nieves, who is half-ass resembling an officer, but definitely isn't one. He is wielding a gun though, that he points directly at Christian as he forces his way into their apartment. Barreling in behind him are his 2 buddies that he brought with him. The trio was also armed with duct tape and zip ties, and their intention was to rob them. Now with 3 armed intruders inside of their house, one of them is seen forcing Christian onto the ground at gunpoint, while the other 2 immediately head to the back end of the apartment. Moments after this, they return to the living room with Alondra and the other 15-year-old boy, forcing them onto the ground as well, and then bounding all 3 of them behind their backs with the zip ties that they brought. Then the 2 assailants would take the teenagers still tied up to the back of the apartment. There was no camera in the back end of the apartment, so it's unclear exactly where they were holding them. During this time, the armed robber, who still has Christian at gunpoint in the living room, starts screaming at him in Spanish, "Where is the stuff? Where's the stuff?" Then you can see the other 2 reappear and they start rummaging through the apartment looking for money. After a while of ripping through the apartment and tearing everything up and not finding what they are after, they are still just screaming at Christian. And when he doesn't give them the answer that they want, they decide to throw a blanket over his head, get him up off of the ground, and walk him to the back of the apartment off camera. It's assumed they took him to the same room that the teenagers were being held in. It wasn't long after they made it off camera that gunshots started to ring out in succession. This insanely chaotic scene unfolds in the back of the apartment, resulting in 4 people being shot right before the suspects are seen quickly fleeing the apartment. During this hectic scene, Alondra would be shot multiple times throughout her body while she was still bound in zip ties. Christian would also be shot as well in the arm and the neck, as well as 2 of the 3 assailants, including 33-year-old Carlos Nieves. Subsequent to them making it out of the apartment, a 911 call was placed saying that a female at an apartment complex had been shot. First responders headed to that location shortly before 3:40 p.m. Alondra was immediately transported to the Connecticut Children's Medical Center, where she continued fighting for her life in critical condition. While first responders were driving to Alondra's address, they came across a car accident that wasn't far from her apartment, at the intersection of Maple and Benton Street. Initially, they probably had no idea that the two were connected when they made it to the car and found Christian suffering from gunshot wounds. Either way, they quickly got him into an ambulance and rushed him to the Hartford hospital, where he was listed in critical but stable condition. Within minutes, they receive another 911 call saying that two men had been dropped off on Wethersfield Avenue in severe condition. The caller said that both of these men had been shot, and whoever it was that pulled them out of that vehicle and left them there had already taken off. That person was allegedly driving an older model of a Ford Taurus. Those two were picked up by first responders and rushed to the Hartford hospital as well, and it just happened to be two of the three assailants that broke into the apartment just minutes beforehand. One of them was later identified to be 25-year-old Joseph Vargas Mercado, and he was pronounced dead when they arrived at the hospital. The other was identified to be 33-year-old Carlos Frank Nieves. He was admitted to the hospital and listed in critical condition, leaving one dead and three in critical condition directly after the shooting. The third suspect was unfortunately able to get away and is still on the run. Where could he have gone? Philadelphia is a good guess, since that's where these assailants were from. They seemingly drove all the way from Philadelphia to Connecticut for this specific reason, and police are saying that this was a targeted attack. Carlos Nieves wasn't critically injured for long, because he appeared in court just days after the crime took place. In the video of the hearing that is available online, it's not evident that he had just been shot.
This was a chaotic situation with multiple parties involved.
33-year-old Carlos Frank Nieves was in critical condition Saturday after police say he and now deceased Joseph Vargas Mercado were dropped off on Wethersfield Avenue by another man from Philly that's still on the run.
He is being charged with 11 offenses, including 1 count each of the following: conspiracy to commit home invasion, murder, criminal attempt to commit murder, criminal possession of a firearm, and impersonating an officer. He was also slapped with 2 charges of risking injury to a minor and 3 counts of unlawful restraint. The judge set his bail at $3 million after being sure to let him know that he, quote, finds it particularly disturbing that Mr. Nieves was found in possession of duct tape and zip ties. His next court hearing is set for August 7th, 2023. It turns out he didn't have a criminal history in Connecticut, but he did have a lengthy one back in Philadelphia, where he had previously been convicted of felonies. The authorities' investigation is in motion, and when they searched the residence to begin with, they discovered large amounts of cash and a money-counting machine. They also found a handgun with the serial number demolished, as well as the camera, which captured a lot of what took place. That's when they watched it back and got a better understanding of what happened here. With one suspect dead, another in custody, and the third still on the run, they issued a warrant for him, but he still hasn't been named publicly. The Hartford community has been shocked by the violence, and it's a reoccurring theme in that city right now. Many of those who live there feel like their safety is at risk. They are tired of the senseless violence, with innocent people being the victims, and you can't blame them with people like this on the run near you, and crimes like this one taking place in broad daylight at a second-story apartment. I'm sure you and I have some of the same questions regarding this home invasion that led to 4 people being shot. What police have not discussed with the public is if there was a connection between that household and those 3 guys. According to Google, Philadelphia to Connecticut is roughly a 200-mile drive. It's just my assumption they must have had prior knowledge of that cash and the money-counting machine that police would later discover. Who tipped them off to it? How did they know about it? Why did they have large amounts of cash and a money-counting machine? Also, why didn't Christian, who lives in the apartment, stay in the apartment and wait for help with Alondra, since medical attention was already en route? And if he truly was a passenger like many of the reports are saying, who was driving and where were they going? To the hospital quicker? The most intriguing question, of course, is what happened in the back of that apartment? Police believe that Christian failed to comply with their orders, and that led to the exchange of gunfire, saying that the shooting was between the suspects and an armed resident. Who the fuck was armed though? If Christian had a blanket over his head and all three of them were bound behind their back, it's a mind-bending question, and the possibilities that I can think of are not vast, and any speculation that I have just leads me right back to another question. It's important to remember this is all still under investigation, with authorities working to arrest that third suspect and anybody else that could potentially be involved in this. Luckily, 35-year-old Christian Rivera would survive the attack, along with the unidentified 15-year-old boy. After days of fighting for her life in the children's hospital, young Alondra would sadly succumb to the injuries she sustained while bound on the floor. She had absolutely nothing to do with this. She was just simply home when these guys decided to bust through the door. These assholes took away an amazing girl who was exceeding expectations and constantly expanding her ceiling. One thing that I quickly realized while learning about Alondra is she was undeniably an overachiever who was driven to succeed. She had a plethora of amazing qualities that were certain to take her far in life. A lot of what I'm about to share with you comes directly from staff of Bulkley High School, including some of her teachers and the athletic director, Diane Callis. The physical education teacher for the school, Juan Dominguez, described her as a smart, witty girl who had a full heart and constant smile on her face, going on to say that she was, quote, very helpful with everyone in classes. She would kind of volunteer to be my student aide, help me with students who were struggling, helpful with everyone around her. I think it's safe to say that she excelled academically, and she would do her absolute best to help other students do the same. She was also a Girl Scout, a very respectful and extraordinary person. I haven't even mentioned the incredible athleticism and competitive spirit she carried. Alondra was a part of the high school's volleyball, basketball, and softball teams, and despite her small stature, she was a force to be reckoned with. Especially on the volleyball court, which was her main focus and passion. Diane, the athletic director, said that she was small, maybe 100 pounds, but she was dominant on the floor, saying she had such a great serve that if she hit it the way she wanted to, the other team had no chance of returning it. And if they were down a few points in a competitive match, they could throw Alondra on the line to serve and just pick up a few sure points. She was an aggressive player who played to win. She hated losing, and apparently her team went 13-4, which in big part is because of the talent and dedication that Alondra brought to the team. She also had stunning artistic abilities which helped her create beautiful pieces, whether it be through artwork or photography, because she was great at both. She had gifted her artwork to some of the teachers at Bulkley, in which they still have in their classrooms today. The truth is, I could go on and on about the amazing person that Alondra was and how she impacted those around her. Her family is completely devastated by the death of their loved one. She was getting ready to fly through her senior year, all while kicking ass on the volleyball court. There was even talk of her being captain of the team her senior year. Now her family has to reminisce on what was instead of being excited about what's to come. A beautiful, intelligent, talented person the world lost that day, and may her memory live forever. Rest in peace to Alondra Vega Martinez. Her family was too shaken up to speak with any news stations about what happened. And can you blame them? You leave your daughter home where she should be safe, yet there's a knock on the door from someone identifying themselves as an officer. That front door gets opened, and you end up bound behind your back with zip ties and then shot. Be careful who you open the door for. Alright guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. If you made it to the end, go down to the comment section and comment "keep her memory alive" so I know. And if you want to, you can follow me on Instagram at Robert Clausen with 2 N's. If you have a story suggestion, DM me on there. I think that's all I have for you guys today. Again, I truly, truly appreciate you. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.